Order number 7, questions and statements.
Statements pursuant to Standing Order 52-1. Senator Fernandi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for your indulgence. Mr. Speaker, a statement on an issue of general topical concern on the complete shutdown of medical services due to health workers' strike in Nandi County. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 52-1 to make a statement on an issue of general topical concern and national importance, namely complete shutdown of medical services in Nandi County due to ongoing health workers' strike starting from Kapsabet County Referral Hospital. Mr. Speaker, sir, Nandi County is faced with serious health crisis occasioned by the health workers that is currently ongoing, affecting general all the health workers in the county as we talk. Mr. Speaker, sir, the county government of Nandi has failed to address the issues affecting doctors, nurses, clinical officers, and other health workers. These issues include harmonizing promotion of staff, poor working condition, non-remittance of statutory deductions, non-remittance on SACCO loans and union dues, yet they have been deducted on the pay slip, and the lack of medical cover to staff. Mr. Speaker, sir, other issues by the health workers include the illegal mass sacking and staff removal from payroll in an exercise that the governor himself bloated the wage bill by illegal and irregular employment. It should be noted that the Nandi County Public Service Board, under the patronage of Governor Sang, on 13 March 2023 at Kaimosi Agricultural Training Center, conducted a verification exercise and head count on staff, whereby they verified the following from the staff. 1, original and copies of national ID, appointment letters, pay slips and academic/professional certificates including valid licenses, then issued them with letters in an event presided over by Governor Sang on 11 May 2023 after successful verification. Mr. Speaker, sir, Mr. Sang himself created the mess in the County Public Service Commission by illegally and regularly employing his cronies, siblings, political spin masters, campaign soloists, goons, radio callers, and political masseurs, whereby they were all in the payroll and have been earning from the Nandi County covers for the last 7 years, and the governor now purports to deny them that he knows nothing about it. As we speak, Nandi County, with the ongoing strike, nothing is moving. From medical services, no development project, almost all county roads, no clean water, no bursary allocation, and there are no drugs in all hospitals, including at the Kapsabet County Referral Hospital. The mortuary in Kapsabet has not been functional for over an year now, and Kapsabet County Referral Hospital, Mr. Speaker, also is on its deathbed. No drugs in all hospitals and dispensaries and healthcare centers in Nandi County, yet according to the latest report of the Auditor General, shows that massive spending on foreign travels by the county executive led by the governor to totaling over Kenya shillings 310 million in the financial year 2022-2023. This is very unfortunate. Mr. Speaker, sir, despite having received over 60 billion through the shareable revenue allocated to Nandi County in 7 years, among other sources such as own source revenue and conditional grants, Governor Sang should therefore take personal responsibility for the mess in Nandi County and be held liable as a chief county executive officer in charge of the county, and stop subjecting innocent workers to torture and joblessness and causing lack of service delivery to the people of Nandi, including but not limited to complete shutdown of medical services. Mr. Speaker, sir, I urge the Nandi County Assembly and MCAs to immediately table an impeachment motion on the governor on these glaring offenses and violation of the Constitution and other laws, which I know we shall uphold at the Senate when that time comes. Mr. Speaker, sir, the move by the County Assembly to form ad hoc committee on the investigation in the departmental operations by CCMs is a smokescreen and diversionary tactics to absolve the governor, the people of Nandi, in overwhelming support that continues in effect the service delivery. Mr. Speaker, sir, in finality, if the MCAs do not impeach the governor on these allegations, then the people of Nandi will start collection of signatures to remove the governor. The investigations of the fraud by the payroll should be handled by the DCI headquarters, noting that during meter interview in Nandi County, the CCIO stated that the governor was not aware of this illegality, yet investigations are still ongoing, and up to now, no one has been arraigned in court of law. Mr. Speaker, looking at these offenses and by the Nandi County Assembly's MCAs, these are serious grounds to impeach the governor. Mr. Speaker, sir, in finality, for health care services to be restored, roads to be fixed, wage bill to be sorted, and development to be realized in Nandi County, Sang must go and must be impeached. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Statement pursuant to Standing Order 53-1, Honorable Senator Richard Onyonka.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order number 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Health regarding the Integrated Health Information Technology System, IHTS, project of the Social Health Authority, which aims to digitize Kenya's health infrastructure by interconnecting patients, doctors, hospitals, and health services on a unified platform. Mr. Speaker, the system is going to be worth over 104 billion shillings annually, and it was awarded to a consortium comprising of Safaricom, Apiero Limited, and Convergence Network Solutions. In the statement, Mr. Speaker, I'd want the committee to explain the ownership model for the Integrated Health Information Technology System and state whether national security system assessment was done, considering that this system will connect our country's health infrastructure, including patients, doctors, hospitals, health products, and health financing on this unified platform. Number two, Mr. Speaker, I hope that the committee will be able to explain how a foreign entity was engaged to leverage the country's health system. Number three, Mr. Speaker, I would want the committee to outline the distinct roles and responsibilities between the Ministry of Health, the Social Health Authority, in the procurement and oversight of the IHTS system, specifying the monthly payment terms that have been agreed upon between the consortium and the Ministry of Health, SHA, and whether these payments are linked to the performance matrices or milestones achievable. Number four, Mr. Speaker, I would want the committee to find out whether there's a detailed specific improvements in our healthcare delivery and patient outcomes expected by the Ministry of Health following the implementation of the IHTS system. Number five, Mr. Speaker, I would want the committee to provide details of the consortium of Safaricom.
Order, Honorable Senators. May Senator Onyonka be heard in silence, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Provide the details of the consortium, Safaricom, Apiero Limited, Convergence Network Systems, and the roles of each partner in delivering the IHTS system consolidated fund, which will be used if premiums are inadequate to meet the contracted amounts. Number seven, Mr. Speaker, I would want the committee to state the measures in place to mitigate delays during this rollout, especially in rural areas with limited infrastructure, and indicate the contingencies or penalties in which the consortium, if it fails to deliver in time or to meet performance targets, on what responsibilities they'll hold. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I would state that I would want the committee to provide us the projected timeline for completing critical milestones such as delivering the 7,000 tablets and 5,000 laptops, which they have promised to deliver. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Haji Abdul.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget regarding the financial operations of county public service boards. In the statement, the committee should provide a list of county governments across all 47 counties that have appointed and designated secretaries of the county public service boards as accounting officers, pursuant to provisions of Section 148 of the Public Finance Management Act. 2, disclose the total budgetary allocations to each county public service board from financial year 2014-2015 to date, and provide their respective approved budgets, including specific amounts allocated for each financial year. 3, state the actual amounts disbursed to each county public service board for each financial year since 2014 across all 47 county governments. And 4, outline any safeguards the National Treasury and Ministry of Economic Planning has established to ensure that the control of budget disperses funds on time to the county public service boards across all 47 county governments in accordance with the approved budget. Thank you.
What is your point of order? Certainly there cannot be a point of order, Senator Fatuma, unless you're seeking for clarification, intervention.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have had several statements on the floor of this House, and I think there are almost about 7 or 8 regarding on matters of Isiolo County, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the governor of Isiolo has completely refused to respond to the statements. That is number 1. Number 2, we have about 3 summonses before various committees of the House which he has refused to honor. Mr. Speaker, there is a summon before Committee of Finance. There is a summon before Committee of Labor. There was a summon before PAC where he was actually charged and he has refused to pay the fee. Mr. Speaker, he has refused also to honor the summon before Health Committee, where he has decided to take the Committee of Health to court to injunct them from actually taking any action against him. Mr. Speaker, on this particular one, we have our mortuary that has not been working for the last 1 year. Mr. Speaker, the Senate Committee of Public Health went to Isiolo to look at that particular mortuary. Mr. Speaker, today, our people are taking bodies to a neighboring county, where a neighboring county, Meru County, has refused to take bodies from Isiolo County. Mr. Speaker, there is also a statement before Devolution and Cohesion where he has completely refused. Mr. Speaker, I have written to you regarding the same. Today, all the hospitals in Isiolo County are closed down because the nurses, the clinical officers, all the technical staffs have put down their tools. Mr. Speaker, I have actually cried to this House, Isiolo is bleeding. Mr. Speaker, I need direction from you because it's unacceptable. And if this happens, Mr. Speaker, all the governors are going to be disrespectful to this particular House. Mr. Speaker, it is in public domain where the governor of Isiolo said he is not going to appear before Senate and nobody is taking him anywhere. Mr. Speaker, I have a motion before this House to stop budget going to Isiolo County, which I'm going to move on some of actually mismanagement and irregularities that are happening in Isiolo County. Mr. Speaker, kindly respond to my letter and give us direction on this particular matter because Isiolo today is shut down as far as service delivery is concerned. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Dulo. I will give my directions on the Isiolo matter. First thing on Monday, before we proceed with the Kericho governor impeachment. Senator Wakili Sige.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to request a statement from the Standing Committee on Labor and Social Welfare regarding the arbitrary withdrawal of health services allowance for certain health sector staff in the county of Bomet. Mr. Speaker, sir, this withdrawal has occurred on various dates throughout the year 2024. These allowances, which were duly budgeted for by the county and granted to the affected staff based on the appointment letters, have been arbitrarily rescinded. This has raised serious concerns about the criteria used to justify the withdrawal of these benefits. The action taken was taken without notice or any clear legal justification, raising broader concerns about the rights of health sector workers, the proper use of budgetary allocations, and the fairness of remuneration practices. Mr. Speaker, in the statement, the committee should 1, clarify the specific legal policy basis for the withdrawal of the health service allowance for the affected health sector staff, indicating the legal provisions, if any, that support this action and whether due process was followed. Secondly, explain the criteria used by the county government of Bomet to selectively withdraw the health service allowance. Thirdly, assess the implications of these withdrawals on the welfare of the affected staff, outlining any plans in place by the county government to address the financial and morale-related impacts on these workers. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, investigate whether and how these funds were reallocated, given that they had been budgeted for in the county budget, and outline any measures in place to ensure the transparency in the management of these funds. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kavindu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to read my statement on the loss of documents used to print title deeds. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Orders 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee of Lands, Environment and Natural Resources regarding the loss of security documents used to print title deeds by the government printers. Mr. Speaker, sir, this incident possesses a significant threat to the integrity of lands ownership documents in our country and could potentially lead to widespread land fraud. The Ministry of Lands, Public Works, Housing and Urban Development must take immediate and decisive action to address these critical issues. In the statement, the committee should, 1, explain the actions being taken to recover the stolen security papers used to print title deeds, as well as the measures implemented to track and retrieve these documents and prevent their misuse for fraudulent purposes. 2, present a progress report on the investigations concerning the theft of the said documents, focusing on identifying the individuals and land cartels involved, along with the strategies implemented to strengthen security protocols to the government printer and the pertinent institutions to avert similar occurrences in the future. 3, outline the steps taken by the State Department of Lands and Physical Planning to raise public awareness about the risks associated with
land fraud and the importance of verifying the authenticity of the deeds and all other documents related to lands registration, including but not least to survey plans, mutation forms, and deeds, and deed plans, and 4, appraise the Senate on the ministry's long-term plans to leverage modern technology while implementing protocols to protect paper title deeds from the damage, loss, and theft. Senator Agnes Kavindu MP, Senator Machakos County. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Chimera.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a request for statement on roaming lions along Mackinnon Road in Kwale County. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources concerning reported cases of lions roaming along Mackinnon Road in Kwale County. In the statement, the committee should, number 1, establish the circumstances that led to the lions escaping a natural habitat without the knowledge of Kenya Wildlife Service officers. Number 2, assess the damage inflicted by these lions on the local community and clarify whether compensation has been provided to the affected individuals. Number 3, state whether there are plans to involve local communities in conservation education programs aimed at raising awareness regarding coexistence with wildlife and the importance of timely reporting of such incidents to prevent further damages, injuries, and imminent fatalities. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, to outline any measures in place to mitigate human-wildlife conflicts nationwide to safeguard the safety of both the local communities and the wildlife. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Lominen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee of Energy on the persistent power blackouts and electricity rationing in Lodwar and other major towns in Turkana County. Mr. Speaker, sir, despite being home to the Takwel Gorge Hydroelectric Power Station, which generates 106 megawatts of electricity, major towns in Turkana County remains unconnected to the national grid and continue to rely on diesel generators for power. Just last week, 2 key diesel generators failed in Lodwar, leading to severe electricity rationing, with residents now receiving power for only 4 hours a day. These has crippled businesses, forced government offices and non-governmental organizations to cease operations and cause widespread disruption of businesses. Towns like Loktang have been without power for months, with no solution in sight, while Lokori and Lokchogyo face similar challenges. The economic impact is devastating, and essential services such as health care and education have been severely affected. In this statement, Mr. Speaker, protect the noises from behind.
Senator Shakila and Senator Abdul Haji.
Thank you, sir.
Kindly let the Honorable Senator for Turkana be heard in silence, please.
Thank you, sir. In the statement, the committee should 1. State steps being taken to connect Turkana major towns, including Lodwar, Lokori, Kalokol, Kakuma, and Lokchogyo, to the national power grid. 2. Ascertain the progress made by the Rural Electrification and Renewable Energy Corporation, REREC, in expanding electricity infrastructure in Turkana and determine the state of stalled projects that were meant to increase electrification in the county. 3. State any measures in place by Kenya Electricity Generating Company, KenGen, to facilitate power supply from Takwel Power Station to Turkana's towns, providing targeted intervention to alleviate the current power crisis. And finally, state long-term plans in place to improve Turkana electricity infrastructure to ensure reliable, sustainable, and affordable energy. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, I have another.
Proceed to read their three statements.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, this is a statement failure of flood control measures on River Kawalase. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense, and Foreign Relations regarding the failure by both county and national government to manage the flood control project on River Kawalase in Turkana County, leading to the significant damage to property and displacement of residents in several villages. Mr. Speaker, sir, despite significant funds allocated by National Water Harvesting and Storage Authority for the project, which was initiated in 2021, recent heavy rains have caused the failure of the gabions and other flood control measures, resulting in widespread devastation in Lodwar town and nearby villages, including Ngitakito, Line Moja, Nabute, Natabusio, Lokaparaparai, and Kawalase. The failure of these structures has severely affected over 360 households, displaced families, and caused significant property loss. In the statement, the committee should, 1, determine the cause of failure of flood control project on River Kawalase, stating reasons for such failure, and recommend measures to all accountable those responsible for negligence or malpractice noted. 2, state steps being taken to provide immediate support and compensation to the affected families, including resettlement assistance to safer grounds. And 3, outline any long-term flood management strategies the county and national government have put in place aimed at reassessing and reinforcing the current flood control structures to prevent failure, flooding incidents, and disasters. Final statement, Mr. Speaker, sir. This is a statement on the health and environmental impact of exploration of oil and natural gas well drilling in Turkana County. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Land, Environment, and Natural Resources regarding the health and environmental impacts of the exploratory oil and natural gas well drilling by Talo Kenya BP in Block 10BB, 13T, and 10BA in South Lokchet Basin, Turkana County. Mr. Speaker, sir, communities living near the drilling sites have expressed serious concerns regarding water contamination and environmental degradation caused by hazardous waste from the drilling activities, which have already resulted in death of numerous livestock and poses significant risks to human health. This is despite the environmental impact assessment reports for the said projects outlining precautionary measures to be put in place to minimize any environmental impacts. Therefore, I request the committee to 1. Explain the waste management protocols put in place by Talo Kenya BV to prevent hazardous waste from contaminating water sources, soil, and air around drilling sites, especially in Block 10BB, 13T, 10BA in South Lokchar Basin, Turkana County, clarifying whether these protocols were contained in the EIA reports relating to the projects and whether they are strictly adhered to. 2. Disclose the findings of environmental monitoring assessment conducted in blocks 10BB, 13T, and 10BA from 2019 to date, outlining any specific remedial action taken in response to those findings. 3. Outline steps taken by Talo Kenya BV to reverse the environmental damage caused by hazardous waste from its activities, particularly in Lomokamar and Kangolemongin areas in Turkana County, and to prevent further damage. And finally, state whether Talo Kenya BV has compensated individuals who have lost their livestock and suffered other damages as a result of its activity. Thank you, sir.
Senator Professor Tom Agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a number of statements. The first statement is on increased insecurity in Kisumu County. I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations regarding the increased cases of insecurity in Kisumu County. Mr. Speaker, there has been an upsurge of insecurity in Kisumu County, driven by various factors such as inadequate street lighting, rising urban poverty, especially in formal settlements like Manyata, Obunga, Nyalenda, and Nyawita, amongst others, which suffer from poor infrastructure and inadequate services. In the statement, the committee should state the measures that the county government has put in place to strengthen community policing as provided for in Section 96 of the National Police Service Act, particularly in informal settlements where insecurity is rampant. 2, provide timelines for the installation of streetlights in high crime areas and indicate how the county government will ensure that streetlights remain operational at all times. 3rd, outline the measures in place to ensure that the county government upgrades security infrastructure, such as the installation of closed-circuit television, CCTV, cameras in critical areas, and improve police response. And lastly, provide details of any collaborations the county government has undertaken with the national security agencies to address the rising crime and how Kisumu County is leveraging national security resources to address the issue comprehensively. Mr. Speaker, sir, my second statement is on pending bills in Kisumu County. I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget regarding the accumulation of pending bills in Kisumu County. The delayed payments have severely affected contractors and suppliers, and many have been forced to close down, relocate, or face financial ruin. This has stifled the local economy, Mr. Speaker, sir, as capital remains locked in unpaid government debts, reducing overall business activity in the region. In the statement, the committee should state the total pending bills owed by Kisumu County for the financial years 2024-2025, breaking down the bills by categories under development and the current expenditure. Secondly, disclose the measures the county government has implemented to settle these bills and state the criteria in place for settling bills owed to contractors and service providers. Thirdly, detail how the delay in settling pending bills has affected service delivery and the completion of ongoing projects, outlining affected projects and services. 4, list pending bills under dispute or subject to audit queries, explaining how the county plans to address these issues. And lastly, state the role of the National Treasury in supporting the county's efforts in addressing the pending bills. Mr. Speaker, sir, my third statement is on the utilization of county emergency funds by the Kisumu County government. I rise under Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget regarding the utilization of emergency funds by the Kisumu County government. Mr. Speaker, Section 110(1) of the Public Finance Management Act provides that a county government executive committee may establish a county government emergency fund which shall consist of monies from time to time appropriated to the county assembly to fund by an appropriation law. Further, Section 110(2) of PFM provides that the purpose of the emergency fund is to enable payments to be made in respect of a county when an urgent and unforeseen need for expenditure for which there is no specific legislative authority arises. In the statement, Mr. Speaker, the committee should 1, state the total amount of money allocated to the Kisumu County Emergency Fund since its inception and specify the criteria used to determine these allocations. 2, provide details on how the funds have been utilized to address various emergencies, indicating total amount spent on each. 3, confirm whether any grants or donations have been made to this fund by external partners or donors, and if so, state the amounts and how they've been utilized. 4, provide a list of companies and entities that have benefited from the fund through tenders, including information of their ownership, and establish whether the tenders were awarded competitively. And lastly, state measures in place to ensure the fund is used exclusively for its intended purpose, to guarantee accountability of its use. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, sir, I have a statement on the delays in salary payments and non-remittance of statutory deductions in Kisumu County. Mr. Speaker, I rise under Order 53 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Labor and Social Welfare concerning chronic delays in the payment of salaries, non-remittance of statutory deductions, and poor working conditions of staff by the county government of Kisumu. Apart from Kisumu County receiving disbursement of the National Treasury, the county also collects its own source revenue, OSR, that can be used to offset costs such as salaries and statutory deductions. Given the importance of having a motivated and a fully functional human resource, it is absurd, Mr. Speaker, that the county government of Kisumu has not prioritized these payments and is seemingly neglecting its financial responsibilities. Such malfeasance from the county government has led to a demotivated workforce, with employees undergoing a lot of frustrations pegged to payments of house rent, school fees, food for their families, defaulting on loan payments, and some being heavily penalized by banks, while others have been blacklisted with the Credit Reference Bureau, CRB, as a result of non-payment of salaries. In the statement, Mr. Speaker, the committee should explain the measures that the county has taken to address the chronic delays in payment of salaries, the remittance of statutory deductions, and poor working conditions, exacerbated by lack of appropriate tools and resources of county government staff in contravention of Article 41 of the Constitution and Section 19 of the Employment Act. 2, provide details of on-source revenue, OSR, the Kisumu County has collected over the past 3 financial years, and explain why this revenue has not been used to defray certain statutory deductions and other personal loan deductions promptly, despite the provisions of PFMA and Section 60 of County Government Act 2012. Outline the measures put in place by the county government to prevent further delays in salary payments and ensure timely remittance of statutory deductions, even when the National Disbursement of Treasury are delayed. And lastly, state whether the county has considered the legal implications of non-compliance with Sections 18 and 19.5 of the Employment Act 2007, especially regarding delays in salary payments and failure to remit salary deductions, and explain any measures it has put in place to address such implications. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Next order. Yes, Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I was beginning to get worried, and you know, this is the season of, by way of, you cease to be. This is my statement for the week. Pursuant to Standing Order number 57-1, Mr. Speaker, I want to present to the House the business of the week that commences Monday, the 14th. As colleague senators, you are aware, at the sitting of the Senate held yesterday, Tuesday, 8th of October 2024, the Speaker communicated by way of message a resolution of the County Assembly of Kericho on the proposed removal from office by impeachment of Honorable Dr. Eric Mutai, Governor of Kericho County, following the defeat of a motion for the establishment of a special committee pursuant to Section 33(3)(b) of the County Governments Act and Standing Order number 81B1 of the Senate. The Speaker gave directions that the hearing of the proposed removal from office by impeachment of the Governor of Kericho will be held in plenary on Monday 14th and Tuesday 15th of October 2024. So, Senators, please do note so that you don't return to Nairobi on Tuesday and you miss certain things. Accordingly, an order paper in this regard will be issued by the Clerk of the Senate to facilitate the hearing, together with the timetable and the program of activities. Similarly, Honorable Senators, you will recall that this morning, the Speaker of the Senate also communicated by way of a message a resolution of the National Assembly on the proposed removal from office by impeachment of His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. Following the defeat of a motion for the establishment of a special committee pursuant to Article 145(3)(b) of the Constitution, the Speaker gave directions that the hearing of the proposed removal from office by impeachment of Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya will be held in plenary on Wednesday the 16th October, Thursday 17th October. Remember, you further gave clarifications, Mr. Speaker, that should there be need to extend beyond the 2 days after realization of the bundle of documents that we have to interact with, you will give further guidance, Mr. Speaker, and therefore we await your guidance. This will be an extremely busy week. Consequently, actually, a procedural motion for the alteration of the calendar and the meeting dates and times for Wednesday 16th October and Thursday 17th October has been listed in the order paper at order number 8, the next order which you are just about to consider, to allow for the hearing to be taken within the stipulated times. We have, Mr. Speaker, out of the abundance of caution as well, ensured that the way the motion is drafted is that we will not leave this chamber until we conclude the business listed on that particular day. And those who have been here long enough know that there's nothing unusual in an impeachment process. There are times we've left here even as late as 3 a.m. It happens, Mr. Speaker. And that's why we are providing the procedural motion in the way and format that it did, so that we don't run into the kind of challenges that we did the last time we had an impeachment motion, Mr. Speaker. So it'll be an extremely busy 4 days. First time in the history that as Senate we are considering 2 impeachments in 1 week. Very consequential week for the Senate and the Republic of Kenya, for the people of Kericho, as well as for the people of the Republic of Kenya. So I had earlier, Mr. Speaker, mentioned, and it appeared like a joke, but I want to reiterate for my colleagues that you be cautious even in your weekend endeavors, Mr. Speaker, because there's a lot before us, and you never know what might
Majority
happen.
Leader, can you stick to your statement?
It is in my statement, Mr. Speaker. I'm reading it off.
Are you questioning the chair?
not the chair. Mr. Speaker, it is in my statement that even Senator Hezena needs to be careful where she goes this weekend, Mr. Speaker. At its meeting, Mr. Speaker, held on Tuesday, 8th October, the SBC approved the next set of questions to be scheduled in the order paper for Wednesday, 16th October. However, given our schedule for the aforementioned hearings, we will reschedule the questions to Wednesday, 23rd of October, 2024. And the summary of those questions is, there are questions to the CS of Energy by Dr. Oburu Odinga, and to the same CS by Senator Shakila Abdallah, and to the CS for Interior by Senator James Burango, and the CS for Interior, another question by Senator Daniel Maanzo. There is a question also to that CS, Cabinet Secretary for Interior, question number 79 by Joe Nyotu. A question to the CS for Interior also by Senator Agnes Kavindu, question number 84. A further question to the CS for Energy and Petroleum by Senator Recha Murgor. Then a further question to the CS for Interior by Senator Kathuri Murungi. A further question to CS Interior by Senator Professor Ujenda. 2 questions actually. And a further question by Senator Murango to the CS for Interior. Further 2 questions. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, those questions shall be considered on Wednesday, the 23rd of October. With those many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay this statement on the table of the Senate. I thank you.
Next order.
Order number 8, procedural motion. Alteration of the hours of meeting for Wednesday, 16th October, 2024 and Thursday, 17th October, 2024.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to move a motion. This motion, procedural motion, alternation of the hours of meeting for Wednesday, 16th Wednesday, 2024, and Thursday, 17th October, 2024. That notwithstanding the resolutions of the Senate made pursuant to Standing Order 32 on 15th February 2024, 26th June 2024, 19th August 2024, and 17th September 2024 on the approval of the Senate calendar, regular sessions for the 3rd session 2024, the Senate resolves, pursuant to Standing Order 34-4B, and with notwithstanding the provisions of Standing Order 34-1, to commence its sitting for Wednesday, 16th October 2024 morning sitting at 9 a.m. Pursuant in Standing Order 34-4B, to hold a sitting on Thursday, 17th October 2024, starting at 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. and pursuant to Standing Order 34-4A, to extend its sitting time for Wednesday, 16th October 2024 and Thursday, 17th October 2024 afternoon sittings until conclusion of business listed in the order papers of the day, of that day. Sub 103, Wednesday, October 09, 2024, afternoon sitting, 1962. In order to investigate the purpose removal from the office by impeachment of His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, EGH, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to request Senator, Minority Leader, Senator Mazayo, to second.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I second.
Honorable Senators, I'll proceed to propose the question, which is that notwithstanding the resolution of the Senate made pursuant to Standing Order 32 on the 15th of February 2024, 26th June 2024, 19th August 2024, and 17th September 2024 on the approval of the Senate calendar regular sessions for the third session 2024, the Senate resolves the following. Pursuant to Standing Order 34-4B, and notwithstanding the provisions of Standing Order 34-1, to commence its sittings for Wednesday, the 16th of October 2024, morning sitting at 9 a.m. 2, pursuant to Standing Order 34-4B, to hold a sitting on Thursday, the 17th of October 2024, starting at 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And 3, pursuant to Standing Order 34-4A, to extend its sitting time for Wednesday, the 16th of October 2024, and Thursday, 17th October 2024, afternoon sittings until conclusion of business listed in the order paper for the day, in order to investigate the proposed removal from office by impeachment of His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua EGH, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. Now, the floor is open. This is a procedural motion. With your concurrence, you may allow me to put the question. The voting is by voice, so that we dispense with this motion immediately. Very well. I will now proceed to put the question. That notwithstanding the resolutions of the Senate made pursuant to Standing Order 32 on the 15th February 2024, 26th June 2024, 19th August 2024, and 17th September 2024, on the approval of the Senate calendar regular sessions for the third session 2024, the Senate resolves as follows. 1, pursuant to Standing Order 34-4B, and notwithstanding the provisions of Standing Order 34-1, to commence its sittings for Wednesday, 16th of October 2024, morning sitting at 9 a.m. 2, pursuant to Standing Order 34-4B, to hold a sitting on Thursday, the 17th of October 2024, starting at 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And 3, pursuant to Standing Order 34-4A, to extend its sitting time for Wednesday, 16th of October 2024, and Thursday, 17th October 2024, afternoon sittings until conclusion of business listed in the order paper of the day, in order to investigate the proposed removal from office by impeachment of His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua EGH, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Now, honorable senators, this resolution you just passed will have meaning if by 9 we have quorum in the chamber. There will be no point of passing such a resolution and then the bell rings for 10 minutes, another 10 minutes, then we start at 9:30. That is the regular time we always start. So let this resolution then make us be in the chamber at 9 so that we don't have to ring the quorum bell. If we do that, I believe the 2 days will be adequate to cover the hearing on this particular matter. Next order, please. Now, honorable members, for the convenience of the House, allow me to invoke Standing Order 45 to rearrange the sequence of today's order paper. And we move to prosecute order number 18, and thereafter resume the normal flow as contained in today's order paper. Clerk, proceed to call that order.
Order number 18, the Election Offences Amendment number 2 bill, Senate Bills number 28 of 2024. Second reading.
Majority Leader.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the Election Offences Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 28 of 2024, be now read a second time. Mr. Speaker, this is third in the series of the so-called NADCO bills, and I have reminded colleague senators many times that we must remain true to our call. Mr. Speaker, we had a very difficult time as a country in 2023, and when we went to the NADCO negotiations, there are many things that we agreed. Senator Okongo Omogeni, from the minority side, represented his side of the Azimio side, and I want to believe he will have a thing or two to say as he seconds this bill, actually, Mr. Speaker, because he was part of the deliberations. He knows very well the presentations and the submissions that Kenyans made to us for, I think it was close to a month at the Bomas of Kenya, where citizens felt that there are certain things that were not right in this country, and they wanted us to address the same. Therefore, we came up with about 9 bills, 3 of which we have since dispensed with as a House. We have 6 more, including a constitutional amendment bill, Mr. Speaker, that is before the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee. And I don't see the chair here right now, but last week at the SPC, he had promised us that very soon JLAC will be bringing a report actually to this House, Mr. Speaker, on what do we think of the constitutional amendment bill that was produced by the NADCO team. There are very interesting provisions there, including for the Senate. I have since seen our colleague, actually, Senator Cherargei, I don't know, he's not here, has done another constitutional amendment bill. Some of the provisions are actually borrowed from the NADCO bill, and that's a conversation that we are going to have. But today's bill, the Elections Offences Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 28 of 2024, Mr. Speaker, is a bill whose principal object is to amend actually Section 6 of the Election Offences Act of 2016, a bill that we passed in this House about 8 years ago, Mr. Speaker. And there was very interesting debate actually at that particular time. If you have seen some of the snippets from the debates and the things that were said at that particular time, Mr. Speaker, it was during the passage of some of this legislation. Some of the very interesting old videos of the Senate you'll see. It was a very heated exchange in this House. You know, one of the things I have challenged the clerk, Mr. Speaker, to do is to come up with a digital library. The generation of Senator Odi Okech does not believe anymore in ink and paper, but they are more keen on listening and watching. Therefore, it's important we keep a video library so that, and make it digitally available, so that when Senator Eddie or Senator Ezena takes a break from their maneuvers on TikTok, they can listen into debates that were done 5-10 years ago, and that will interest them. I would have included Senator Methu in that list, Mr. Speaker, but given his latest looks, I don't think he qualifies to be with his age mates in that particular regard, Mr. Speaker. But he's young at heart. I'm not sure about that face, Mr. Speaker. So in 2016, when this Election Offences Act was passed actually in this House, like I have observed, it was a very heated debate because we kept on reminding each other one of the cardinal rules of lawmaking. In fact, Mr. Speaker, it was the first time I heard these words by then Senator for Bungoma and now the Speaker of the National Assembly, that as you pass laws, please think of that law in the hand of your worst enemy and you on the receiving end of that particular piece of legislation. Because many times we pass law here and you imagine that because maybe I'm a legislator, I can easily get away with these things. But you never know, you will not be a legislator for life. You will not be in power forever. There are days you will be an ordinary citizen, Mr. Speaker. And therefore it's important that as we pass legislation, that was an obtaining theme at that particular time, Mr. Speaker, that because as political leaders, we are actually practitioners in the political space. As we passed the Electoral Offences Law, it was important that we remind ourselves that what obtains at that particular time may not be necessarily true. And we've seen the topsy-turvy of our politics, Mr. Speaker, that the people who you necessarily don't greet today may be your best friends tomorrow. Many people are getting to learn that in this particular session. But, Mr. Speaker, you know for a fact that those who've been around for a while know that that is a norm of politics. Therefore, the bill, Madam Speaker, I do note the change, has two clauses, clause 1 and clause 2. It's a very straightforward bill. And I know, Senator Okongo, you remember quite well why we had to distinguish from the other elections amendment. We wanted to speak specifically to offenses. And that's why we kept it separate to the other bill. Clause 1 is a short title of the bill, and clause 2 provides that it shall be an offense for members of and staff of the IEBC to conduct or hold an election in an ungazetted polling station. You remember the very big dispute we had in the 2017 petition, Raila Odinga versus Uhuru Kenyatta, about ungazetted polling stations and the debate about it. And it was at that time that we insisted actually, Mr. Speaker, on the need for an entire gazettement of polling stations and it being prominently displayed. Further, the clause creates offenses for members of staff of commission who unreasonably delay in declaring election results or knowingly alter declared election results. You know the dispute that we've had. And there's a history to this. Those that have seen the sunshine more times than I, like Senator Oburu, Mr. Speaker, will tell you the journey that the country has traveled, that it was not unusual back in the day, in the days of Kanum Lolongo system, Mr. Speaker. Legend has it. For me, it's legend. For people like Senator Oburu, this is the kind of life that they live through, Mr. Speaker. That you will go to an election, and you know the way they conducted elections that time. If it's Senator so-and-so, your agent will hold your picture and people will queue behind. And many times, because the returning officer was the district commissioner, Mr. Speaker, they would declare the result that the powers that be wanted. And it didn't matter how many people you had on your queue. Many are the times that we hear the short queue was declared to be the longer, and the longer, the shorter, Madam Speaker. With the advent of the new constitution, while we thought we had slayed the dragon of electoral malpractices, Madam Speaker, that ghost has refused to die. And it's not unusual to find that after an election, you find an election official, Madam Speaker, take inordinately long before making a declaration, despite the fact that all results have come in, all polling stations have been declared, but for one reason or the other, they're just taking long in making a declaration. In fact, there are many elections actually, Madam Speaker, that in the last 1 or 2 elections, you find that the results were declared days after. And there was no justifiable reason why the same cannot be done. I look forward to a time, Madam Speaker, where we will be living in a country where elections can be held in the morning, the results are declared in the evening, and the following day, people are back to work like nothing happened. Because there are more mature democracies that have such practices, and people believe and trust the electoral systems, Madam Speaker. And part of achieving that level of belief in our electoral system and conduct, Madam Speaker, include tightening the noose with provisions such as what is provided in this particular bill, Madam Speaker. Because when an electoral official alters the results for whatever reason, either they have been induced or they don't like the candidate that has won, it must be punishable. And the punishment must be punitive, Madam Speaker, so that the will of the people is always respected, so that we don't have people kill each other, so that we don't have people feel like it doesn't matter how you vote, that it is them that count that matter. I don't think that is what Kenyans wanted when they queued up on the 27th of August in 2010 and bequeathed themselves the new constitution. Therefore, that's part of the amendment. The provision set out under Clause 2 is crucial, Madam Speaker, because it helps in upholding the credibility of our electoral processes by specifying that only designated polling stations may be used to conduct or hold an election, and will not only help prevent potential manipulation or irregularities, but will also fortify democratic principles of free and fair elections, ultimately fostering public trust in the electoral systems, Madam Speaker. Ultimately, Madam Speaker, if you also tamper with election outcome that is likely to undermine the will of the people and erode the legitimacy of democratically elected leaders, Madam Speaker, then there is an imposition of the offense, Madam Speaker, so that we ensure that such electoral officials are punished, Madam Speaker, and we ensure that people trust that the people that are in office were legitimately elected. Therefore, Madam Speaker, this is just a cleanup. Like I had told you, you remember, Madam Speaker, this was still at the time where there were disputes about how elections were carried out, who made a declaration here or there, whether it was rightfully done or not, Madam Speaker. Therefore, I really believe, Madam Speaker, that this is an extremely important piece of legislation, which I want colleague senators to support so that we can conclude on this conversation and ensure that we tighten the noose in terms of belief in our electoral processes, Madam Speaker. I wish to state that the integrity of the electoral process is fundamental to the proper functioning of a democratic society, and therefore I urge senators to support this bill and make any further addition. But remember, there is a cardinal rule that we agreed on how we are going to treat these so-called NADCO bills, Madam Speaker, that even by amendments, they have to be negotiated in a bipartisan way, that you need the nod of yours truly and Senator Stewart Maza and the team that he leads to concur, because there's a long, rigorous way which we arrived at these bills, and Senator Okongo Mogeni knows that we worked long and hard, deep into the night sometimes, to agree on some of these provisions. But nonetheless, as a legislature, we have the full authority and the final say in terms of any piece of legislation that takes the full force of law. We are the final body. Therefore, it is not to gag members in any way, but just to remind them of a cardinal principle that a good turn deserves another. And when you reach an agreement, it's always important to honor it. Therefore, Madam Speaker, with those many remarks, I beg to move and request my colleague who served with me in the NADCO team, the Senator for Nyamira, Senator Okongo Omogeni, Senior Counsel, to second. I thank you.
Senator Mogeni.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to second this very important bill that is trying to strengthen the way we deal with those people who want to manipulate elections. Madam Speaker, when we sat at the NADCO team, it was very clear that the intention of the people of Kenya is that we should have free, fair elections that are not manipulated either by the candidates or by the members of staff of IEBC. And Mr. Speaker, Kenyans also want those who are tasked with the running of our elections to take full responsibility for any manipulation or any interference in either the counting or the tallying of votes that are received by candidates. That's the only way, Madam Speaker, we can ensure that elections should truly reflect the free will of the people. Madam Speaker, there are many countries, many jurisdictions where elections are closed and the results are known almost at the close of the hour. I was privileged, I believe in 2020, I may not remember, between 2020 and 2021, I was invited by the Secretary General of the Commonwealth, Madam Patricia Scotland, to be an observer on behalf of Kenya in the Bahamas. And Madam Speaker, the elections in Bahamas closed at 6 p.m. By the time we were going back to our respective hotels at 9 o'clock, the Prime Minister, the new Prime Minister who was taking over from the outgoing Prime Minister, was on TV. Within a record 4 hours, Madam Speaker, the results were out. But in Kenya, you'd be lucky, Madam Speaker, to know your presidential candidate within 48 hours. You'll be very lucky. So it's this idea of keeping people in anxiety and also waiting restless in our tallying centers is not fair. Madam Speaker, I have my own personal experience. Elections are conducted on a Tuesday, Madam Speaker, and you will never be handed a certificate to come back to Nairobi as a member of parliament or a senator till the third day. And there's this fear among candidates that if you get out of a polling station, your results will be altered and the certificates of a winner can be given to another. It is inhuman, Madam Speaker. It is totally inhuman, Madam Speaker. You stay the first night in a tallying center the whole night. You stay the following day. You get your results, so your certificate the third day, Madam Speaker. We cannot justify why we should be treated to such inhuman treatment by the officials running our elections. Madam Speaker, with the technology, with enhanced staff for IEBC, we should know our results in real time. And what makes it worse, Madam Speaker, we're among few countries in the world where we do 6 elections in one. So you have to wait for the counting of the presidential results and the tallying, go to governor, go to senator, go to member of parliament, women rep, and finally to MCA. And Madam Speaker, it's now going to be worse because we also made proposals to allow the presidential elections to be counted, tallied first. And you can imagine how contentious presidential results can be. So if we don't create this offense of unreasonably delaying results, people can wait even up to 4 days. So these are very progressive proposal, Madam Speaker, and we want to challenge when we recruit new commissioners to IEBC, this should be top on the agenda, Madam Speaker. Even down here in Lusaka, when Akainde Ichilema was being elected president, we were in Zambia as observers. I was there with the Speaker then, Ken Lusaka, Madam Speaker. And I was pleasantly surprised that their results are released in a much quicker time than in Kenya, Madam Speaker. So I urge colleagues to support this very progressive amendment. This is actually for our own good as politicians, as people who run in elections. Senator Kalwale, you know how long it takes for you to get your results as a senator. I'm sure nobody here gets his results on the same night when the voting comes to a close. You'll be lucky to get them the following 2 nights. I don't know what the experience from Nakuru, but it takes a very, very long time. And Kenyans who appeared before us and NADCO were not impressed at all. The aspiration and the wish of Kenyans is that this should be done in really time. The other offense, Madam Speaker, that we are trying to address is alteration of results. Madam Speaker, I was privileged to handle the Raila Odinga election petition in 2013. And there is this defense that election officials will always put in their responses. They will tell you that this was an intentional mistake in, how do we call it, transmitting results from Form A to B, where you will find that a candidate in Form A may have scored 200, but when you go to Form B, when tallying is happening, the results will be exchanged with another candidate. And when the officials come to court, they will say that this was an intentional mistake, not deliberate, but unintentional. But you can't joke, Madam Speaker, with somebody's votes. If I've garnered 400 votes at the polling station, I expect the same votes to be protected, preserved to the tallying center, maybe for member of parliament or for a senatorial candidate. So this offense, Madam Speaker, is going to make it punitive for any official working with IEBC to make any alteration. The results that you announce in Form A, Madam Speaker, must be reflected in Form B and Form C. It will no longer be an excuse to tell us that the mistake was not deliberate, it was unintentional. No. If you don't transmit the results as they were declared or announced at the polling station, this proposed amendment is making it an offense, Madam Speaker. We have seen it in many elections. In 2013, Madam Speaker, I represented Honorable Richard Tongi in an election petition for Nyaribari against Honorable Chris Bichagi. And Madam Speaker, the contention in that election was from one polling station called Bobaracho, where there was a lot of manipulation on the results that were garnered at the polling station and as transmitted to the tallying center. And when we argued in court, there are 2 versions. The one that was declared at the polling station and the one that was declared at the tallying center. The interesting aspect in that case, Madam Speaker, was that if you were to rely on the results that were declared at the polling station, Honorable Richard Tongi was to be the winner. If you took the one that was declared at the tallying center, Honorable Chris Bichage was to be the winner. You can imagine that kind of doubt that you create as to who really is a winner in this contest. And the judge had no option other than to rule that because of the doubt that was created as to the votes that were garnered by the two candidates from that polling station that was materially affecting the outcome of the election, he had no choice other than to nullify that election, simply because of a mistake of a scrupulous official from IEBC. And the tragedy is this: no criminal sanctions were taken against the officer who was involved. So this proposed amendment is now going to make it an offense, Madam Speaker, for anybody who makes any alteration, either deliberate or undeliberate, on the outcome of any results. This is the only way, Madam Speaker, as a country, we can make the lucky Kenyans who have been tasked to managing our electoral processes in this country, so that we be a country that conducts elections that have integrity, Madam Speaker, elections that will truly reflect the will of the people, elections that will not be easy to impeach or to overturn in an election petition, because we waste a lot of time as a country going to court, then the electoral court overturns an election, and you go back to the people. It's very expensive to the candidates, it's expensive to the country, and does not leave a lot of credibility on our elections. So finally, is this offense of conducting elections in ungazetted polling stations. Very contentious issue during the Raila Odinga versus Uhuru Kenyatta elections, where it was alleged, Madam Speaker, that in several areas, in some parts of this country, including northeastern Kenya, the electoral officials decided to convert, I don't know whether to say to convert or to create. They just started to create polling stations and say, we were trying to take care of nomads. But you see, the law is very clear, Madam Speaker. It says a polling station must be gazetted. Honorable Galwale, you know that. A polling station must clearly be gazetted. So this particular amendment is making it a serious offense for any electoral official to conduct elections in ungazetted polling stations. Madam Speaker, if we have gazetted Girigiri Primary School as the polling station for Samaro Ward in West Mogirango, nobody has got powers to move that polling station, for example, to Tinga Market. It must be at that polling station. Whether we are pastoralists or farmers, there need to be certainty as to where a vote will be cast. Because you have observers, Madam Speaker, who must know where they are going to be stationed and observe the elections. You have the officials who are delivering electoral materials. They must know with certainty where they will deliver those materials. Some are drove from choppers, etc. So this again is making it clear that our polling stations must be known. There must be certainty. There should not be any doubt as to where one will vote. Madam Speaker, I've done so many election petitions. I was the first lawyer to petition the Supreme Court successfully in the case of Peter Gaderau Munya versus Kilemi Mwiria, and the issues we are addressing here featured very prominently, all the way from the High Court, Court of Appeal, all the way to the Supreme Court. And I remember Kilemi Mwiria questioning why a polling station that was closest to the tallying center was the last one to deliver election results. Because of the same thing we are trying to cure here, unreasonable delay. So I urge my colleagues to support this bill. This was a bipartisan bill, We took views from Kenyans. This bill was not meant to serve either the UDA coalition or the Azimio coalition. It's an attempt to do some cleanup on around how we conduct our elections, to make it more efficient, to build trust from Kenyans, and to ensure that the will of the people is truly reflected in our elections. With those many remarks, Madam Speaker, I beg to second. Thank you.
Honorable Senators, I propose the question that the Election Offences Amendment Bill number 2, Senate Bills number 28 of 2024 be now read a second time. Senator Khalwade.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to speak in support of this amendment. And Madam Speaker, I do so with nostalgia because I remember that as stated in the statement of objects and reasons on the memorandum of this bill, the principal object of this bill is to amend Section 6 of the Election Act, Offences Act of 2016. Why with nostalgia? Is because, Mr. Speaker, I remember this act. When we enacted it, it was the industry of a joint committee of both the Senate and the National Assembly in 2016. And I sat on that committee, Madam Speaker. I remember we pitched in a hotel for almost 2 weeks. Our chairs were Honorable James Orengo and Kreitu Murungi. Those were the co-chairs. And we did a very good job. That it has served us well, but again exposed the need for us to make further amendments, carries true.
Order, Honorable Senator Tobiko and team, can you consult in law notes, please? Tones, please.
Madam Speaker, thank you. Carries true what the late former Vice President of Kenya, Michael Kijana Wamalwa, told the country, namely that even in the best of ideas, there's always time and room for those ideas to yield ground to better ideas. I therefore support these amendments and want to insist that never should we allow the outcome of the election, of any election in this country, Madam Speaker, to be decided by the people who count votes and announce the results. The outcome must be decided by the people who vote. And Madam Speaker, I can speak with a degree of authority. I was looking at the book by the Honorable Millie Odhiambo, yes, about rigging or being rigged out. And in a way I was thinking about myself because I have gone through it all. I won an election fairly and squarely in 2007. And because of lack of this kind of scrutiny, I was returned to a by-election. And the grounds, Madam Speaker, were that a brother of my opponent sat in a corner in a polling station, and he was recording what he thought was the result. And IEBC was doing its work. So when we went to court, I was accused, IEBC was co-accused,
or not really accused, but I was a respondent and they were co-respondents. The court just decided to agree with the guy who was taking some funny notes in a corner. And I was returned to an election. I remember Dr. Buru Odinga and the former Prime Minister, Raila Odinga, and his deputy, Musalia Mudavadi, and Minister then Oparanya, and Minister then Otuoma, and Minister then Ababu, and Minister then Anyang' Nyong'o. They all converged in Ekolomani just to teach me a lesson. And it was very exciting that when we defeated them, we now widened the margin. So these things, we have to continue tightening them. But then what a shame. I have seen elections in Ghana, Madam Speaker. I don't know, you are very experienced in these things. I've seen elections in Ghana. And you see an elections official carrying results on their heads in a carton, going to some central place where they return the things, and nothing happens to them, and people believe in the outcome. What is wrong with our country? That even with this act that we made in 2016, we still must tighten and tighten and tighten even further. There is something wrong about our very integrity as individuals who conduct elections, as individuals who present our names as candidates. We do not believe in anything. So much so that I'm yet, Madam Speaker, I'm yet to meet a single person who lost an election who says that I lost an election. They always say, Madam Speaker, quote unquote, kura yangu iliibiwa. I've never understood. And therefore, Madam Speaker, the amendments must ensure that as the courts decided that the election ends at the polling station. I want to support this because this is a march towards tightening that ending to truly end at polling stations. What do I mean, Madam Speaker? Most of the polling stations, IEBC has structured them so that around about 500 people vote at a stream, presided over by a presiding officer. So how it comes to pass in this country that counting 500 votes can take 2-3 days, I've never understood. I've even done an exercise, Madam Speaker, of supposing I was a presiding officer and there are 3 candidates and they have all benefited from these 500 voters. And you say, hold this for candidate 1, candidate 2, candidate 3. The process of dishing out, this one got this, this one got this, this one got this, should not take more than 30 minutes. And then the actual counting should not take more than 5 minutes, because to count from 1 up to 500, you don't need hours. So you'll find, Madam Speaker, this counting has been done, and the election officials in the polling station, they'll keep on sitting there, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. By that time, all agents have become fatigued, they are asleep, and now the people who count the votes start deciding the outcome. I think I want to find a way, innovative, whereby we can demand, where we, by law, that announcement by a presiding officers should be within a particular time frame. At the county election, Madam Speaker, I normally get my results after 4 days. 4 days. So when you ask the county returning officer, he tells you, I'm still tallying. They'll move from that point to this point, I remember when I lost my election, which was very surprising. It's very difficult for me to lose an election in Kakamega, and the Speaker knows this. So when I lost the election in 2017, I was so surprised. So I decided to create my own IBC. In 2022, Madam Speaker, because I had created my own tallying center, full-fledged, within 8 hours after voting, I already knew the outcome of my election. But I had to wait for 4 days for the returning officer to say that I'm the winner. And this was with a lot of experience, Madam Speaker, whereby, and I believe Senator Eddie Kicheru has this experience also. He ran into similar turbulent clouds, Madam Speaker. When now the returning officer, and colleagues, you better take this as your own experience, put up your own tallying center. When they discover that you have got your own tallying center, they then respect you. Because for every polling station you have a result, for every constituency you have a result, they become cautious. I remember in Likuyani constituency, Madam Speaker, in 2022, a whooping 6,000 votes had been removed. So we just called the returning officer, told him, look, even if you must steal, we know we have won. We can leave you these 6,000 votes and we shall still win. What do you do? So this law amendment is crucial. 6D speaks to the offense of willfully preventing any person from voting at the polling station at which they know or have reasonable cause to believe such a person is entitled to vote. This is a very common thing. Madam Speaker, if you go to a populous polling station like Khaega in Shinyalu, or Malinya in Ikolomani, or Muliro Gardens in Urambe, if you are very popular there, then what they do, you'll go, you'll find women there who don't know how to read and write, probably 10 of them, sometimes more. They are seated there, have been sitting there from 6. They've been told you're not going to vote for some strange reason. So this offense that has been put there is to put in check some presiding officers who become rogue. You talk to the police, they look this side. You talk to those kinds of things must be addressed. Madam Speaker, before I end, there was a very bad experience in Kakamega and in Mombasa in 2022, where an election was postponed by IEBC. The governor's election was just postponed. In Mombasa, in Kakamega, it was postponed. So, it could not make sense to us. How would you postpone an election? So people have gone to vote. They find the election is not taking place. And some people get so disgusted, they go back home without voting. And therefore that affects the other 5 elections, since you had only nullified. Shall I say nullified? No, you had postponed only one election. We should make it impossible for IEBC to postpone any election for any reason unless it is a question of a disaster. And if it is a disaster, Madam Speaker, how can a disaster affect only one election out of 6? If there is a storm, it should affect all the 6. So that brings my contribution to the end, but there's also this offense of a presiding officer or an official willfully rejecting or refusing to count any ballot paper which they know or have reasonable cause to believe is validly cast, or any candidate in accordance with the provisions of such a written law. This one, it is curing something which actually happens in every election. And Madam Speaker, I know you are going to be a candidate, not under affirmative action, but a straight candidate, you better take this one very seriously. The ballot is cost. And so it goes, Catherine Muma, Catherine Muma, Catherine Muma. Then the returning officer, the presiding officer, just refuses to admit that vote as being yours. Now, when you are new in the process, Madam Speaker, and you think you're winning, when they put aside 6, when they put aside 10, you don't take it seriously because you are excited. What you don't know, that if this thing is being repeated, like in Kakamega where I've got 2,000 polling stations, if they knock out 10 slowly like that, you're talking about losing 20,000 votes that had been cast in your favor. So I love this amendment, and I want to congratulate Senator Cheriot, and I think, Honorable Ichungwa, and His Excellency Kalonzo Musyoka, because, Madam Speaker, they were the ones who were the co-chairs for the national dialogue that has birthed these amendments. I support. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Faki.
Asante Bi Speaker kwa kunipa fursa hii pia kuchangia mswada wa marekebisho ya sheria ya makosa ya uchaguzi. Mheshimiwa Speaker, sheria hii na marekebisho haya yamekuja kupitia kwa ile kamati ya NADCO, National Dialogue Committee, ambayo hapa katika bunge letu la Senate iliwakilishwa na Senator Cheriot ambaye ni kiongozi wa wengi, na vile vile pia Commissioner Senator Okongo Mogeni ambaye alikuwa anawakilisha upande wa wachache. Mheshimiwa Speaker, ni muhimu kwamba sheria zetu za uchaguzi zipigwe msasa mara kwa mara, kwa sababu kuna mambo yanayoibuka katika uchaguzi ambayo mengine labda hayakuweza kuangaziwa katika sheria ilipoundwa. Kwa mfano, Mheshimiwa Speaker, swala la kuwa na vituo ghushi vya uchaguzi ambapo matokeo unaambiwa yanatoka katika kituo hichi, lakini katika orodha ya vituo ambavyo vimewekwa katika orodha rasmi ya gazeti havimo katika orodha hiyo. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Speaker, hii sheria itaharamisha vituo vyovyote ambavyo vyafanya uchaguzi wakati haviko katika gazeti rasmi ambalo limegusia na kutaja vituo ambavyo vitatumika katika masuala ya uchaguzi. Mheshimiwa Speaker, swala la pili ni swala la wale wanaosimamia uchaguzi. Na Mheshimiwa Speaker, kuna mabarobaro wawili hapa ambao wanacheka kwa sauti. Ningeomba wacheka kwa sauti za chini kwa sababu mzee anazungumza, kwa hivyo ni muhimu. Kwa Mheshimiwa Speaker, nasema kwa
Senators, please consult in low tones. Let's not disrupt.
Tunasema Mheshimiwa Speaker kwamba wale wanaosimamia uchaguzi pia sasa lazima sheria iwaangazie kwamba makosa wanayofanya, ukiukaji wa sheria unaofanyika katika wakati wa uchaguzi, Mheshimiwa Speaker, ni muhimu wale wanaohusika pia wapelekwe mahakamani na waweze kuhukumiwa kwa makosa kama hayo. Mheshimiwa Speaker, haiwezekani kwamba msimamizi wa uchaguzi akatae kuhesabu kura halali ambayo imepigwa na mwananchi wa Kenya. Mheshimiwa Speaker, haifai ama haiwezekani msimamizi wa uchaguzi atangaze mtu aliyeshindwa kuwa mshindi na asichukuliwe hatua yoyote na sheria. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Speaker, sheria hii itasaidia pia kuweza kuchukulia hatua ama kuwapeleka kwenye sheria wale ambao watapeleka matokeo ambao si sawa katika uchaguzi ambao utakuwa umefanyika katika nchi yetu ya Kenya. Mheshimiwa Speaker, kwa hayo masuala mawili mimi naunga mkono marekebisho haya ya sheria ya uchaguzi ya makosa ya uchaguzi. Asante Bi Speaker.
Senator Eddie. Order, Senator Matthew.
Senator Matthew, thank you, Madam Speaker. I think that it will
Senator
be...
Newton and Senator Matthew, please. You are not in a market, please.
Madam Speaker, I think Senator Matthew seems to be very, very unsettled today.
Senator Eddy, please make your contribution.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is a very important progress, Madam Speaker, from the NADCO conversations, and a beacon of hope in the country, because every year that we have gone into an election, we have come out more bruised as a nation than before we went to an election. And therefore, it is in order to congratulate the members of the NADCO committee, starting with the co-chairs that, midwifed the production of the documents that then led to inform the pieces of legislation that we're going to see in this House, especially with regards to elections, electoral processes, electoral bodies. And this is one of those, Madam Speaker. And I like to start right away by supporting this particular motion, Madam Speaker, because one of the issues that we face as a country is that the commissions that run election are actually above the law, in the sense that the offenses that commissioners do make sometimes are reduced to mere mistakes. However costly they are, Madam Speaker, to the country, they end up not getting held accountable in the eyes of the nation. Madam Speaker, in 2007, I was a very young man in Friends School Kamusinga, and as a Form 2 then, the chaos that we experienced in our election and the resultant death that we experienced, if you remember, Madam Speaker, there was this envelope that eventually went to in the International Criminal Court. And in that envelope, when eventually the names were revealed in that envelope, Madam Speaker, there were people from the police who were held accountable. And there were politicians who were held accountable. And there were public servants who were held accountable. But there was nobody from the commission then that was the referee that ran the election that were held accountable. Madam Speaker, fast forward 2013, when we had an election that was also contested. Even at appearing at the court, you find that the commissioners always escape scot-free from these problems. And therefore, it's very important that we support this bill. And the bill has attempted to look at those offenses by members and staffers of the commission. And I like the way they are very specific, to the extent that if you look, for instance, the issue of documentation of elections, that is under section 6A, subsection A. And it says that one of those offenses is if anybody makes in any record, return, or other document are required to keep or make under such written law an entry which they know or have reasonable cause to believe to be false or do not believe to be true. The documentation of an election, given the fact that this is one of the most radically looked at documentation. For instance, Madam Speaker, we know that forms of election, starting from Form A to Form B, to Form C, that then is used to declare elections at a provincial level, and the other ones used at constituency levels, Madam Speaker. These are highly regarded forms that have got security features that are very clear. And Madam Speaker, we have seen a number of instances that those documents are doctored. And electoral officials have got so much power that that doctoring sometimes escapes the mind of the nation because of the bulkness that our elections are. You can imagine, Madam Speaker, that at a presidential level, we are dealing with over 46,000 polling stations. And those polling stations, Madam Speaker, sometimes if these things are not well documented, then we have a problem. And Madam Speaker, I don't want to belabor all the sections and all the offenses that have been listed here, but I want to make 3 quick comments. That, Madam Speaker, I think that I will be submitting a number of amendments on this bill, because it is one thing to look at offenses committed during the running of an election. But I think that the biggest offenses that we can face as a country are offenses through the entire process of an election. If you remember 2017 election that was cancelled by or nullified by the court, it was nullified based on the process of the election. And Madam Speaker, in my humble view, this bill seeks to sort 3 things, but it also leaves 3 things that I want to talk about. Number 1, this bill seeks to solve unreasonable delays and unreasonable doctoring of election results. I think that is well captured in this Section 6 amendment. From, if you read all the way from A to M, it is well captured. Number 2, it also seeks to sort the alteration of results. If I were to summarize what I'm seeing from this bill, which is why I'm supporting it. And number 3, it can essentially help us to correct ungazetted polling stations, which sometimes have also featured in a number of our election results, that you end up having some ghost polling stations, like what happened in Migori County, Madam Speaker, in the 2017 election. If you follow that nullification, Madam Speaker, there were variably so a number of polling stations that came to the Supreme Court as ungazetted, non-existent polling stations that then were used to vary that election. To the extent that this bill can solve those 3 issues, is a big step to the country. However, Madam Speaker, I think that this bill must also explore the entirety of an election process, which I don't think starts by the day of voting. I think that election starts becoming a fraud when we start by registering of voters. And this registration of voters, Madam Speaker, we have seen a number of disenfranchisement of voters. Even now, there are young people in this country, Madam Speaker, who would wish to be registered voters. But because the registration process and the issuance of IDs have been put as separate, Madam Speaker, I think we as a country should choose to believe that it is an offense if you're turning 18 years old and you are going to get your ID and you don't get it with your voter's card. It actually should be an offense. In fact, the issue of voter's card is something that this bill should help us question. If you have got an ID card that is genuine, why do you need a voter's card and you're already 18? And our laws say that at 18 you get an ID card, and at 18 you are a viable voter. Why then must this issue of voter's card be prohibitive for young people to be able to vote? We must be able to explore an amendment that I'll bring into this House on making sure that young people in this country can be able to get their ID cards and either their voter's card on time or use their ID as their voter's card. So that's one thing I'll be exploring, Madam Speaker. Number two, that I think is important in the registration process, Madam Speaker, is being able to clean our registers on time. I think that commissions at any given time, we must have a duration under which the commissioners must be able to clean the register. And if it is not cleaned, the way we have seen a number of elections where a register of an election is not hygiene to conduct an election, so that you don't know which voters are in the register vis-a-vis which voters are actually viable to be able to vote, to the extent that the alteration of results in this country happen because of the issue of voter register, that the commission is being paid to take care of. And if this is something that should happen on a rolling basis, it should not happen that just by the time that we are going to the election is when you see this thing called mass voter registration, where commissioner wants to run around, and sometimes that audit of the voter register is not done properly. So this issue of registration, there are a number of offenses that the commission has done in this country that I'll be pushing amendments. I don't want to go into them in details, but I'll be pushing amendments on the registration of voters that I don't think that has been captured well in the offense that I'm seeing here. The second offense, Madam Speaker, that I think is very important is the role of the commission vis-a-vis the role of the secretariat in terms of looking at procurement as a process. Madam Speaker, if we don't solve the issue of procurement violations on election materials in this country, even if you hold an officer who is sitting on the day of election on some offenses, the election would have been rigged long time ago if there is no hygiene in our procurement processes. And there are a number of those violations, Madam Speaker, that I believe that we must be able to explore, and I'll be pushing those specific amendments on what constitutes offenses of procurement in nature. Because procurement of electoral materials, Madam Speaker, some of them start way before even the year of election starts. There are a number of indices that that have been seen that by the time an election comes in place, Madam Speaker, if you are to reflect on the election that we had in 2017 that was nullified by the Supreme Court, and then you juxtapose that election with the election that will happen in this country in 2022, Madam Speaker, you will find that the filth of those